prioritize the pride.
Welcome, everyone. Good Tavach. Welcome back. As we take it pleasure now to welcome in A.B. Spry and Saba and Irving Fishbaum, Mel Zachter, Yaakov Warman, Rebel Yayafi, Shimon Klein, Mo Kushner, Barry Cement, Yisrael Fisher, Ben Zion Cohn, Nachman Chapler, Shelley Zeitlin joining us all the way from the Nefesh Conference, Dr. Eisenberg, Yitzi Muller, Dr. Guy, Menachem Yamansky, Yitzi Fuchs, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Rabbi Kranz, Stephen Holtzman, Richard Rosenzweig, glad to have you back, Abe Arbach, Elia Schutman, Danny Vogel, who you're glad is all right, Moshe Lehman, David Helfgott. Here in the shul we have Berish Gesserman and Michal Avram Chavin, Reb Halpert, Reuven Shannon. What's your name?
Semach Avram.
Semach Avram. Semach Avram. It's great, delicious to have you. Hope to have you more often. You're in Toronto. It's hard. The commute from Toronto is a little hard, and it's a little hard. No, we have the people that do it with cheap fares, but it's a little hard. Yeah, for sure you could join us on Zoom. Every night we have a tremendous Zoom community over here. It's very simple. You go to zoomdaf.com and then just put in the code is RMMW.
I got Rabbi Palmer's from this.
Oh, okay. Listen, I can't give an argument to that. I was once a scholar in residence in that shul many years ago. Rabbi Palm gives at 8 o'clock?
No, 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, so that doesn't stop you from coming to me at 8.
And he also does it in the evening, at 10 o'clock.
I'm saying, but...
Or after Marv.
8 o'clock is available.
8:30 does it in the evening.
So you go both times?
No, one is separate from the other.
Okay, the excuses are getting thinner and thinner. Anyway, glad to have everybody joining us here as we are holding right now ahead on the daf, 10 lines from the top of daf Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph. Now, again, a lot of analysis over here. Amamar, if you remember, Reb Shimon said that it has to be like the Pesach. Even on the communal bama and in the Mishkan, you are only allowed to do things that have, at least the communal bama, you're only allowed to do things that have a fixed time, which, as we said, excluded something like the Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur or the Sor L'Avodah Zarah. My time at Reb Shimon. What's the reason, Reb Shimon? The Bnei Yisrael did the Pesach in Gilgal. The Gemara says, well, why not? Pshita. Elahakam Ashmalan. Oh, it has to be only like the Pesach. The Chayvis ain't Pesach who the Karev. Only Chayvis like the Pesach that have a fixed time. Holav Ke'ain Pesach. But if it's not like the Pesach, then lo Karav. Then it wasn't offered up. Vidach. And the others that don't hold the distinction, what do they do with this pasuk of that they did the Pesach begilgal? Oh, this now is a Genset story. You see, what would happen if somebody is an oral, is uncircumcised, and he's tamei? He's a tamei mace. And let's say he did his circumcision on the 11th day of Nisan. If he would only be able to get hazah when he's mohel, he'll miss the Korban Pesach, because you have to sprinkle on the 3rd and the 7th day. So if they would only be able to sprinkle him on after he becomes mohel, so even if the 3rd day they did on the 11th day, the 7th day would already be the 15th. It would be too late. It would be too late. So now the Bnei Yisrael, they were circumcised because there was a danger to circumcise in the Midbar because of the travel. So they were circumcised when they crossed the Yarden. And it says that they were circumcised not on the day they crossed the Yarden because of Chul Shedderech, on the next day, on the 11th. And it says that they did the Pesach Gilgal. So that means that it must be that an oral can get Hazah. Because if an oral can't get Hazah, they must have did the Hazah beforehand. Now you'll say, why were they Tameh? So Rashi says they were Tameh because of all those that were punished and had to die in the Midbar, and they buried them. So they were Tameh. Most of them were Tameh. So if they made the Pesach Gilgal, it couldn't be, if they were first mauled on the 11th day, it would be too late. So it must be that you're allowed to do the Hazah the first time, even when the person is an Aral. And therefore, that's the lesson. Amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Bana, Aral Mikabel Hazah. And an Aral could receive Hazah and have the first time, the third day.
So even then in the Midbar, they dug their own grave?
Yes, but even when they dug their own grave and they went in, somebody afterwards had to cover them. Right? They couldn't do it. But they wanted to bring a Patara. Now, that's the whole miracle of Hanukkah. Some say, at least. Some say that it was Tumah Zav and there's no Tumah Hutra B'tzibah by Zav. But others say that they wanted to do it B'tara. Tani Tana Kamei de Rav Ada bar Ava. A Tana taught before Rav Ada bar Ava. Ein bein Bama G'doyle L'Bama Ketana. There was no difference between the main Bama and a Bama Ketana. Ela Pesach v'chayves hakvu lehem zman. Only the Pesach or other obligatory karbanos. So, there's going to be a very fine point over here. The fine point is, perhaps, because it contrasts what we bring in a Bama Ketana to what we bring in a Bama G'dayla. Now, on a Bama Ketana, voluntary, it could only be an Oilo or a Shlamim. It can't be a Chatas, because there's no voluntary Chatas. You can't bring a Chatas or an Asher. So what the Gemara wants to be medayik over here is that Amalei to Targem, this brisa should be explained masnisech ba'olas chayva, that you could bring on the communal bama an oilas chayva like the oila of the tamid, the ika oilas nadav, because there's a counterpart on the bamas yachid, a voluntary oila. The chatas, because if it was allowing a chatas, a chayva on a bama gedayla, there is no counterpart of a chatas nadava. The chatas nadava miika, is there a voluntary chatas? Says the Gemara, well, but maybe when it's talking about, it's not talking about an oila, it's talking about a mincha, because there's a minchas chayva, right? There are obligatory menachas. And then there's like the Minchas Aimer, and there's voluntary Menachas. The the Ika Chavitin. There's obligatory Chavite Kohen Gadol, which he brought half in the morning and half in the afternoon. Says the Gemara, no, that suggestion that it was talking about mincha wasn't made because Kasavar he holds like the Rabbanan that ain't mincha b'bama, that there's no mincha on a bama. Okay, now we shift to the next sugya. Bo l'shilai. We said that in Shilai it had a mixed construction. It had a stone structure, and it had a ceiling of curtains. So the Gemara says, Menani Mili, how do we know that there was such a mixed construction? So, Rab Chia bar Abba, Rab Yechanan, Kasav Echad Ayma Vatvi'eyu Beis Hashem Shilai. We brought to the house of Hashem in Shilai. Right? But another pasuk, a house is a stone. But because of Echad Ayma V'yitesh Mishkan Shilai, he left the Mishkan Shilai, V'ayel Shikain Ba'adain, that tent where he used to dwell with people, with men. So here it calls it an ayel. And furthermore, it says, Vayimas Ba'al Yosef, he became disgusted with the tent of Yosef, Ubeshevet Ephraim Leibacha, and he didn't choose anymore the tribe of Ephraim. So here it calls it an ayel, and here it calls it a bias. How do you explain it? Haketzad. It was a stone structure, it was called a bias, but Lo Yosef Sham Tikra, it didn't have a roof, Ela Avanim Milmatan, stones below, Urias Milmalan, and the roof was curtains. And when it says, this is another detail, it says that Hashem will come to El Menucha Vel Nachala. The 369 years we were in Shilai, that was Vihi Oisa Menucha. That was the Menucha. Nachala was Beis Hamikdash. Menucha refers to Shilai. Some aren't gairis this piece because it doesn't have what to do with our Gemara. Now, Kachim, we said they were eaten in Shilai, right, within the curtains of the Mishkan Shilai. And where were Kachim Kalam eaten? The Kachim Kalam were eaten B'chol Araya, wherever you could see. Says the Gemara, Menani Mili. How do we know? Let's try to mute people here. Menani Mili. Menani Mili. Amar Reb Oishid the Amar Kroi Shamalacha. Be careful. Pentala Eloisecha B'chol HaMakom Asher Tireh. Oh. Don't offer karbanis wherever you could see the Mishkan Shilai. You're not allowed to offer. You could eat it. You're just not allowed to offer it. B'chol HaMakom Asher Tireh Iatamala. You can't offer it up. Avalata Eichel B'chol HaMakom Shatarei. But you could eat wherever you could see the Mishkan Shilai. Says Gemara, maybe it means that you could shecht it wherever you could see it. You could shecht it wherever you see it. Says Gemara, no. Can't be that because shechting and smoking up has to be in the same place. Where you offer it, there is where you do it, where you shecht it. Rather, it means to say that wherever you could see it, you could eat it. That's the source of Rab Oishia. The Gemara brings a different source. Rab Abdimi Bachasa Amar Kra, the pasuk says, V'loi tanas shilai. Now there's an interesting discussion over here. Look at this Rashi. You won't see a Rashi like this very often. Rashi says, Kapashtiv. I did a search. Now, he didn't mean he did a Google search. Rashi didn't have Google. When it says he did a search, it means he looked through Shas. He looked through Tanakh. Chapashtiv. V'loi matzasiv b'mikra. There is no pasuk v'loi tana shilai. There's no such pasuk. But there is a pasuk in Yeshua that says this phrase, and what the Gemara must mean, Mizracha to the east, Tana Shilai. So what's Tana Shilai? Where Tana means to sigh. Tana Va'aniya, says the Gemara, Mokum Shekala Raya Aisai Mis'anachalav, that a place where everybody that sees it would groan and sigh, Alachilas Kachim Shalai, on the fact that they used to eat the Kachim there wherever they saw Shilai, and now they can't. Rabbi Avo Amar Kra ben Paris Yosef, a charming son is Yosef. Ben Paris Alayayin is a great Balaturim. Paris is B'gematria exactly Ephraim U'Menashe. That's really great. It's fruitful. So Paris is Ephraim U'Menashe. But anyway, Ben Paris Yosef, Rashi says it means a child of charm. Charming son is Yosef. Ben Paris Alayayin, charming to the eye. So the Gemara says, Ayin shaliratzus alazayin ulihanais medavar sheina shalai, the eye that didn't want to feast from what was not his, the beautiful wife of Potiphar, she was a feast. She was extremely beautiful. The eye that didn't want to feast on what was not his, Tiska v'teichel kamali eineha, will merit that in his chelik, because Mishkan Shiloh was in his chelik, Rizaycha, that you'll be able to eat wherever you see it. Rabbi Yosef Reb Chanina Amar, Ritzon Sheichni Sneh. Now, we're going to dash in Snef because Samach and Sin is interchangeable. And therefore, it means also those that hate, Sinah. Ayin shaloiratzis alahanis medavar sheina shalai, the eye that didn't want to feast from what that wasn't his, Tizke will merit v'teichel bein asnuin, that they'll be able to eat even in the gvulin of those that hated him, because when you were able to eat wherever you saw Shilai, that already embraced other Shvatim's property. So you could even eat in places which belonged to those that formerly hated him and wanted to sell him and sold him. So now, there's some girsayas over here. Tana, Royu She'amru, when it says wherever you could see, it means, and I'm sorry, but we'll have to change the gears a little bit over here. Kol she'roya ve'ein davar mafsik. It means that you see it with nothing interposing in between. Amalei Reb Shimon ben Eliakim, the Rebbe Lazar. I'll give you an example of a place where you have an unimpeded view. Asber lav kagam be'kenishta de ma'ayin, the famous shul of Ma'ayin, where you got a clear view of the Mishkan Shilai. Amra Papa, Raya She'amru, it doesn't mean you have to be able to see the whole Mishkan Shilai. Raya She'amru loy Raya Kulai, doesn't mean you have to see the whole thing. El Raya Miktasai, means that you could see even part of it. So now the Gemara asks two questions. Boira Papa, what about you want to sit down to eat, but you could only see it when you're standing. When you're sitting, you can't see it. I made viraya. If you're standing, you could see it. However, Yaisha ve'ein raya. Sitting, you can't see it. Could you eat sitting? My. By Rabbi Yirmiyah, let's say you're by a ravine. Now, at the base of the ravine, you could see it. Inside the ravine, you can't see it. So, Yaakov, you might want to mute yourself.
And no noise coming here. I'll mute it anyway.
Okay. I just, when I see the red thing go on, I tell people to mute themselves. I'm worried about aliens and all those kind of things. By the way, I didn't get a chance to compliment you on the new revised and updated picture. I give you a bracha that picture should grow and grow.
It's not everybody. It's just a lot of them.
Well, it's very beautiful. It's very beautiful. You know, we had a
10 year
we had a
man, 10-year-old.
we made a Hanukkah party for our couples, both my wives and mine, and all the grandchildren, and we simply could not get them all in the picture. I mean, it's an amazing picture, but we just simply couldn't do it. You really need to hire a professional to do such a thing. It's not only that, because everybody else has to be busy by corralling everybody. It's Kanai Nahara. When I married my new Rebbetzin, I didn't just get her. That would have been more than anybody could ask for. But with her came 5 wonderful children and grandchildren. So it's a lot of assets, Baruch Hashem. So the second question is, if Oimed al Gabein Anachel V'Raya, if he stands by the foot of the ravine, he could see the Mishkan, but B'Seich Anachel V'Ein Araya, but inside the ravine, he can't see. Could we say that the whole thing has one din, and he could eat or not? Teiku Tishbi Ataretz Kushas Ribayis. Kiasar Abdimi, these are already Shas Gemaras. Kiasar Abdimi Amar Rebbe B'Shloishim Mekayim Shas Shechina Al Yisrael. In 3 places did the Shechina devolve upon Klal Yisrael. And we were talking about besides when we have 10 people here in the shul. Of course we have Shechina. No, we're talking about a greater, as I told you, there's different concentrations of Shechina. So in full concentration, B'Shloishim Mekayim Shas Shechina Al Yisrael, they are B'Shilai, in the Mishkan Shilai, by the Noiv Givain, the communal bavos in Noiv and Genwal, and a Beis Olam in the Beis Hamikdash.
Were they there all at the same time?
No, they're all different periods.
Yeah.
We're going to see the different periods. Ubekulan loisharsa ela b'chelik binyamin. And it was always in the chelik binyamin. Now the Gemara is going to ask and momentarily, what do we mean? We said that Mishkan Shiloh is by Yosef. But here the Gemara says they were all in the portion of binyamin. Shenemar choyfei falav kol hayom. The Shechina was devolving or hovering the whole day, and that says by all the time. That says by Binyamin, kol chafifos, all of the appearances of the Shechina lo yehu ela bechelkei shel Binyamin. Ki azal Abaya, when Abaya left, Amra Kameder Rav Yosef, they told this teaching to Rav Yosef. And Rav Yosef was very critical. This is maybe the first time, the only time in Shas, that Abaya's father, who he never knew because when he was conceived, his father died, where he gives his father's proper name. Amra Kameder Rav Yosef, Chad Bra Havalei Lekalil. Kailil had one son. Halavai, we should all have such a son. Chad bra havelei lekayla v'loy miskin. And he's not fixed. How could he say that it was only by Binyamin? V'ksiv vayitosh mishkan shilai, and he left the mishkan shilai. V'ksiv vayimas ba'oil Yosef. He was disgusted with the tent of Yosef. V'shevet Ephraim loy bacher. So you see, Shilai was not by Binyamin; it was by Yosef. So the Gemara now makes a split. That maybe when it says by Yosef, it was talking about the Sanhedrin. Amar Rav Adamai Kakashalei. Dilma Shechina Bechelet Binyamin. The Shechina was in the portion of Binyamin, but the Sanhedrin Gedailah, that was Bechelet Yosef. Now you'll say, where do we get such a basis? Because we had such a thing by Beis HaMikdash. With the Matzina of Beis Elamim, the Shechina Bechelka Shel Binyamin. Beis HaMikdash was in the Chelek of Binyamin, but the Lishkas HaGazes was in the portion of Yehuda, the Sanhedrin Bechelek Yehuda. So the Gemara says, yeah, but over there by the Beis HaMikdash, Binyamin and Yehuda's portion are right next to each other. So that's sensible. Amalei Haki Ashta, what's the comparison? Hasam Mikravin Nachalois Kabe Adadi. Hacha mi Mikravin. The Shilai and Binyamin, they don't border one another. So what's Pshat? Says the Gemara, Hachi Nami Mikravin. It could be that a chelik of Yosef streaked out and embraced the part of the Sanhedrin. Hachanami Mikravan Kedamar Rabbi Chama Rabbi Chanina Ritzura Hayisa Yoitza Mechelka Shel Yehuda. A strip came out of the chelik of Yehuda. V'nichnas Mechelka Shel Binyamin. That's why the Yesod was not able to be built on the majority of two sides, because it could only be built by Binyamin, and there was a strip coming in from Yehuda. He was aggrieved about it to get it back. That's what it says. Hachanami, it's possible. A strip came out all the way from the Chelka Shel Yosef, the Chelka Shel Binyamin. That's the meaning of groaning of Shilai. That Binyamin groaned about it. He wanted it back. So Gemara says this question about the Mishkan Shilai is Ketanoi. It depends on the Machlokes Tanoim. Chayfef alav, that's Zemikdash Rishon. That's the first temple. Kalayim Zemikdash Sheni. Uvein Kseif of Shachain Elu Yemaisa Mashiach. So that has by Binyamin the Mikdash Rishon, the Mikdash Sheni, and Yemaisa Mashiach. It doesn't say anything about Shilai. Rabbi Aimer Chayfef alav Zeh Olam Hazeh. Wherever it is in Olam Hazeh, it's always by Binyamin. Kalayim Elu Yemaisa Mashiach. So according to Rabbi, it was always by Binyamin. According to the Tanakama, it wasn't always by Binyamin. So now we asked, what were the different periods? So now the Gemara is going to tell us the different periods. Tan Rabbanan. Yemei Oyel Moyed Shebamidbar Arbam Shana Chaser Achas. The tabernacle was for 39 years. It was made in the first year, it was set up in the second year. Yimei Oyel Moed Shebe Gilgal. The Oyel Moed in Gilgal was for Arba Esrei, 14 years. Zayin Shekivshu, Zayin Shecholka. The 7 years of division, the 7 years of conquering, and the 7 years that they allotted the land. Yemei Oyel Moed Shebenoi V'Givain was a total of Chamishim V'Sheva, was a total of 57. What's left until the years that Shlomo built the Beis HaMikdash, what's left, Nishtayru L'Shiloi Gimel Meis v'Shivim Chaser Echad. That in Shilai, the Shechina was for 369 years. Says the Gemara, what a wonderful way to start a week. What a wonderful way to learn two blat, come together with such an actus. It's a wonderful way to start a week. How do we know it's 39 years? The first year Moshe built the Mishkan. So the second year it was erected. So that's 39 years of the 40 years. And that's when Moshe Rabbeinu sent out the spies. Shebegilgal Arba Esrei, 14 years. Now how do we know that the land was conquered 7 years and divided 7 years? Sheva shekivshu v'sheva shechalku. 7 years of conquest and 7 years of division. So minolan, how do we know that the conquering was 7 years? So we know it when Kalev stood to possess Hebron after the years of conquering. The Ka'amar Kalev, Ben Arbam Shana Anoichi B'shlach Moshe Eved Hashem Oisi V'Kadosh Barnea L'Ragel Esaretz. When I went with the Meraglim, I was 40. V'Oshev Oisoi Davar Kashem Levavi, and I returned what was in my heart. I was loyal to God. So now that was already 2 years into the Midbar. So that means that when Kalev crossed the Yarden, he was 78, because he was 40 when he was sent, and 38 years later when they crossed the Yarden, he was 78. And now when I'm coming to take my portion after the conquest, Ben Chamesh Shmainim Shana, I'm 85. So if he was 78 when they crossed the Yarden, and when they finished the conquering, it was 85. That means that the years of conquering were 7 years. How much was he when he crossed the Yarden? 78. The Kamer Ben Chamesh Shmainim Shana, and he says now I'm 85. Harisheva Shekifshu. So that's 7 years that they conquered. How do we know that it took 7 years to divide? So first the Gemara says something that sounds arbitrary. That it took 7 years to conquer. It makes sense also Sheva Nami Shechilku, that it took 7 years to divide it. So the art scroll over here, if you have an art scroll, you'll see in note 31 that he says the Chazon Ish in Shvius writes that he's at loss to explain the basis of this assumption. Why does the 7 years of division have to equal the 7 years of conquering? But that's what the Gemara says. V'iba Yisema, the Gemara gives a different answer. And here, again, if we wouldn't have Rashi, we would absolutely have no clue what this Gemara means. And it needs a big preface, this last piece of Gemara that we're going to learn now. It's a pasuk in Yecheskel. Yecheskel said, Be'esel l'chaydish, on Rosh Hashanah, Hoyadvar Hashem Elai. The problem is that Rosh Hashanah is not Be'esel l'chaydish. Yom Kippur is Be'esel l'chaydish. So the Gemara says it's talking about that it was Yovel. Yovel, Yom Kippur is called the Rosh Hashanah because that's when the slaves are freed. That's when the land's returned to people. So it means that it was talking about Yovel. And it says that it was 14 years Achar Shehuk So'ir. It was 14 years after the temple was destroyed. Now, that means that 14 years after the temple was destroyed was a Yovel year. Now that's a problem. Because Shlomo HaMelech built the temple 480 years after Yetzias Mitzrayim. So that's 440 years when they entered the land. So if you count 440, and then you count the 410 that the Bayis Rishon survived, 440 plus 410 is 850. 850 is exactly Yovel. I think that's 17 Yovels. Yeah, 17 times 50 is 850. So how could the Yovel be 14 years after the destruction? It must be that we counted the Yovel only after the 14 years in Gilgal. Then it works out. If you count the Yovel from after 14 years in Gilgal, so then the Yovel is 14 years after the city was destroyed. But the only way there's 14 years in Gilgal if there was 7 years of conquering and 7 years of division. And therefore, says the Gemara, we know it, that it says that it was a Yovel year, 14 years after the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. The only way that could be is if we count Yovel from after Gilgal, and that would mean that Gilgal is 14 years. And it could only be 14 years if it was 7 years of not just conquering, but 7 years of division. Oh, this was a long daf. I want to say a few things, a few details. First of all, we do have some sponsors for Menachos, but if anybody else wants to sponsor the entire Masechtas Menachos, which I just told somebody it's like a piece of cake, let me know, 718-916-3100. You can text me, or rmmwsi@aol.com. Also, we will be having here in the shul, and everybody is invited, a siyum on Masechtas Zevachim. It will take place Tuesday here in the shul at 6:30. And then, of course, Ma'ariv will be 7:45, and then will be the gala beginning of Masechtas Menachos. Okay, now, Rabbi say we're just going to do the Mishnah Gaimis.